Welcome to Fake or Freaky, the podcast where the beer is cold, the spirits are active, and the truth is, well, up for debate.
We're diving headfirst into listener stories, real-life hauntings, cursed dolls, creepy cryptids, and maybe just a few tall tales.
Is it paranormal, or just a case of too much tequila and not enough therapy?
Either way, we're here to crack open a cold one, summon some ghosts, and find out if it's fake or freaky.
So today, we're going to be going in honor of, I had mentioned The Conjuring earlier, in honor of the new Conjuring movie coming out in September. We are going to be going over the Smurl Family Haunting. This is a pretty crazy haunting. There's a lot of controversy behind it, as you know, we'll get into later on. But I'm going to kind of set the stage, where it's located, kind of the history of the town, the family, and stuff like that. So the Smurl Family Haunting is based out of West Pittston, Pennsylvania. So I'm going to butcher that quite a bit. I'm not going to lie to y'all.
Why wouldn't it be just Pittston?
Yeah, or
Pitton.
Pitton.
Or Pisson.
Pisson. So it's a small town in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. So it's in the heart of coal country. So at the time, there was a lot of like coal factories and railroad tracks and factory remnants and stuff like that. By the 1970s and 80s, West Pittston was a place where neighborhoods were kind of tight knit. Everybody kind of knew each other and knew each other's business, right? So like nowadays, it's not really like that. It just kind of depends on where you're at. So like I know in the city that we live in, I don't even know my neighbors.
Facts.
One, because I mean, renting is a thing, and you know, people come in and out and stuff like that, and you don't really get close with people. I mean, the neighbors across the street have been there since they built the houses, and so I kind of know them a little bit, but I don't know anybody else on the street or anywhere surrounding, right? So back in those times, in the 70s and 80s, it was more kind of like just neighborhood oriented, you know, love that neighbor type of deal. Many of the homes are really old, dating back into the early 1900s. That's when they were being built. They were built fast and sturdy during the coal boom, and then just like kind of patched over as families handed them down or rented them out. The particular number, the house, the street is 328 Chase Street. Okay, the Smurls lived in a duplex, a two-family home where Jack and Janet, right, Smurl, those are going to be the two main kind of mom and dad. Not characters, but people that were affected by the haunting. And then their parents, John and Mary, lived on the other side. So they kind of shared that duplex. The house was about 50 to 60 years old. The estimated time was around 1920 that it was built. And it was just a regular kind of rectangular shaped shingled roof, weathered wooden sidings, and it looked like it hadn't been painted in like decades. The interior of the house was really small rooms, low ceilings, narrow staircases. They would creak a lot and stuff like that. Old plumbing and wiring that often malfunctioned. And then there was like a faint smell of dampness, right? It was just really common in the coal country homes, just because of the old wood, and then like from the basements as well. Pennsylvania rains a lot. It's the East Coast, so you know it kind of has that like kind of, you know, watery type of smell to it. I don't know if any of you listeners have been in that like type of home, or like right now where we're at, it's raining outside, and like you kind of get that faint hint of smell because like outside we have wooden stairs, so it's like you can kind of get that faint hint of smell.
I want to throw this out there really quick. So it's like when you hear how the house is kind of set up, like what they moved into, it doesn't sound the best, right? But the reason that they moved was because Hurricane Agnes in 72 destroyed their previous home. So they were kind of limited with options on what to do. So the reasoning that they chose this duplex was because, one, Jack and Janet were staying with his parents. What the fuck is her name?
John and Mary.
John and Mary.
Yeah.
So John, Mary, Jack, Janet, and their children decided to move into this duplex together. But since it's separated, you got Mary and John on one side, and Jack and Janet and the kids on the other side.
And I feel like that was I don't know if it was common back in the day, but it was kind of smart, doing that, especially with Agnes ripping apart the previous house. I mean, it was kind of the best financial situation just because, Jack was he served in the military, and then Janet was a full-time mom at the time. She's a full-time mother, raising the kids and stuff like that. And so after the military, Jack, right? Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, Jack.
Um, he was actually a Topps bubblegum representative, so he did like sales for Topps bubblegum and stuff like that. They actually both worked there, and then when they had kids, Janet decided to be a full-time mom. So, kind of more into like why they went into it and stuff like that. One thing I want to kind of highlight and want you guys kind of remember, right, is like the way the house is set up, right? So it's like really small rooms, low ceilings, narrow staircases, they creaked, old plumbing, stuff like that.
Everything's compact, super compact.
Very compact, right? So you gotta kind of think claustrophobia, stuff like that. Like my mom, she has terrible claustrophobia. I mean, we live in Tornado Alley, and like there was a scare in one of the cities or in the city that we live in. There was a scare, a really big tornado, and like we weren't even in like this closet for like 5 minutes, and my mom's kind of freaking out, right? So like, yeah, claustrophobia ain't no joke. I don't really feel that, but that's just kind of like how it is, right? So it's like a really, really small house. And so like as we get further into it, you'll kind of see maybe why they felt and heard and, you know, saw the things that they did. So one thing that I want to bring up is like the neighbors, right? So everybody kind of knew their business and stuff like that. Or everybody knew each other's business and like, what they were doing and stuff like that. The neighbors had been said to have had an uneasy kind of quiet about that particular home. Um, Jack and Jenna described it as claustrophobic, right? As though like the walls are pressing in on them, especially at night. I feel like that in my room most of the times because I'm drunk going to sleep and it's fucking spinning in that bitch. But I don't know if they really drank a lot like we are a bunch of alcoholics, but
I mean, we're drinking on a Monday.
yeah, that shit is kind of. What are we doing?
You got to do what you got to do. That's all I'm going to say. And then I also want to throw out that with Jack working for Topps Bubblegum, I'm not sure if that's like a bread-winning job or...
I can't imagine at the time it was, maybe.
Because the gum is good.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of money that's bringing in. So the fact that any extra income that they had, they were throwing it towards renovating the duplex. But that's kind of when things start to... That's when shit hits the fan, honestly, is whenever they start renovating the home. So that kind of leads me into starting with the hauntings, the things that started to go on. So as Jack and Jenna were renovating, it would start with small things, right? So tools would disappear, whenever they would... So they ended up renovating their bathroom, right? And then after they renovated the bathroom, brand new appliances, brand new tub, sink, toilet, all that. Well, one day that Janet's home, she goes into the bathroom and she notices like basically claw marks on the sink and the toilet and the tub. It looks like Bigfoot went in there and fucking like took a bite out of some shit,
Oh my god, hold on. That shit was gross.
The fact that these are brand new...
my velo.
Yeah, that's disgusting. That's disgusting. Get it together.
I'm sorry.
I heard you swallow it. I heard it go down and come back up.
I swallowed it and it came back up. That was like the grossest thing in the world, and it's not even a flavor that I normally get. It's fucking spearmint.
I think you need to put down.
I think I just need to jump off a cliff. Anyway.
Probably. But anyway, so the fact that these are brand new appliances, and it looks like King Kong went in there and, had his way with them is kind of concerning, I would say. Because, sinks and stuff just doesn't get scratches like that. And it wasn't like where they could, buff it out. It was damage that was beyond repair on a brand new sink and tub. So I don't know, that would freak me out. Number one. And the fact that that's the first thing they encountered was kind of freaky. The tools being misplaced, I can get that. Maybe, Dawn or Heather, one of their daughters, maybe they grabbed them and wanted to go, with the Barbie, whatever. But the fact that that's what started it is pretty crazy. But also the timeline on these events are kind of spread out because I mean they were there for what 15 years, 10 years,
Right around, yeah, like 10.
so they endured this stuff for 10 years.
Yeah.
So the accounts, and this kind of gets into like the speculation and stuff that we'll get into later, but the fact that they stuck around for so long,
Dealing with that type of oppression and stuff like that is
concerning.
that,
One, that's concerning.
very concerning.
Two, I mean, I get it. You don't have money. You just you move in with your parents. You start any extra income you have. You're trying to renovate the place, trying to have a fresh start.
But still, bro, like if my TV caught fire, first of all, like I don't care if it was an electrical fault or what. Like I would figure a way out of there. I'm not gonna lie to you. If my dog got thrown fucking clear across the room, bro, like I don't know.
You're right.
I feel like I would try to find a way to get the fuck out of there.
You're right.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of where, like, I don't know. We'll definitely get into that later. The speculation and like.
Well, since we're on the TV topic,
Yeah.
So the first incident was the bathroom, right? Appliances, scratched, whatever. Well, in 1974, these are all according to Jack and Janet. Jack was sitting in his living room watching TV when it just burst into flames. No warning, no smoke, just straight up
Straight flames.
That I don't think you can say that's faulty wiring.
No way.
It just catches on fire like that?
No way in hell. Like I feel like if it's faulty wiring, it would smoke through the wires first.
And you would smoke.
You would, yeah, 100%.
It smells smoke. You wouldn't that bitch would not just catch on fire.
I don't think that's possible.
So it wasn't just the TV though. It was other appliances throughout the house. You know, the stove, the microwave, the fridge would just smoke or just immediately catch fire.
And also, like, all the appliances that did catch on fire, there were no electrical faults that happened.
This house passed many inspections before the Smurl family moved into it.
Yeah.
But even faulty wiring, just starting a fire right off the bat, I don't see that happening. It's gonna be gradual. It's not gonna be just straight up catching on fire, right?
No way in hell. No, yeah, I don't believe that for a second. Like that it could be faulty wiring or anything of the sort.
So going into 1975, Dawn, which is one of the daughters of Jack and Janet, she would be too scared to sleep in her own room. So every night she's going into her parents' room, and she would say that people are floating in her bedroom. So of course, Jack, man of the house, right? He gets out of bed, he goes to check it out. Lo and behold, nobody there. Nobody floating. But of course, his daughter's scared to go to sleep, and she did that. She was in there every night for months. She did not want to go sleep in her own room. So after Dawn wouldn't want to sleep in her room, things just kept getting crazier. Radios would play at full blast. Footsteps would be heard throughout the house. Toilets would flush by themselves in the middle of the night with nobody there. And banging would be heard throughout the walls of the house. So imagine you're just chilling, right? You're about to go to bed. Maybe Jack and Janet trying to get freaky.
That's shit.
And you just hear banging in the walls. Or the toilet flush.
Are you sure the walls were banging because they weren't getting freaky?
Or it was John and Mary next door.
That's fucking...
It could be John and Mary next door. Let's be honest. Anyway, the fact that all this shit is happening and they're still there, because they've been there for 3 years now at this point. Leading up to 1977 when their twin daughters are born. Shannon and Karen. The fact that you're there for 3 years and the banging alone and stuff catching on fire, it would send me out. Because not only did his TV and appliances catch on fire, but Jack's car caught on fire also.
Yeah,
brand new car.
That shit is crazy. He literally drove it back home from the dealership. And like, was it the next day? The next day, that bitch catches on fire. Like, bro, if I'm already hearing bangs and shit like that, I'm already feeling like this oppressed like energy and like just like the air feeling thick and just like you're smelling rotten flesh and sulfur. So if y'all don't know, right? If you're not like kind of familiar with the paranormal or just like demonic oppression in general, a lot of the times some of the like early signs is sulfur, right? So the reason why they say sulfur is because there's like a saying, and it's like an old like kind of urban legend, kind of could be myth, but it's kind of been proven to be kind of real just off of like multiple accounts with the demonic is sulfur. The reason why they say it is because it's like from hell. That's what hell smells like, sulfur and like burning flesh. So like if I'm already like sensing all of that and like feeling that and smelling that and like my fucking car catches on fire, like I am so out of there. Like the next day, not even the next day, bitch. I'm out of there that day. I will figure it out. But no, they didn't. They stayed for another fucking 8, 9, 10 years, something like that.
Maybe it's his transmission. Right?
Or maybe a rock hit the windshield.
Or maybe a rock, yeah. So a little backstory, right? So for our day job, we work out of town, and this past week, our work truck decided to start giving us transmission problems.
Shit in the bed.
Shit in the bed, literally.
Bitch was melting.
So we get it to a shop, and then we get a replacement vehicle this morning. Brand new, 400 miles on it. 400 miles on it. On the way to our day job, a fucking rock cracks the windshield.
There's no one in front of us.
Nobody in front of us. We're probably going 20 miles an hour, getting onto the freeway. And a rock, brand new truck, cracks the windshield already, right off the bat. It's just crazy to me. I don't get it. brand new vehicle.
You know, it is the demon trying to not have us talk about this.
Well, it needs to chill out because that shit was brand new. And it got it broken.
That shit's crazy.
Like, I don't believe it. I really don't believe it. But anyway, so going into 1977, Jack and Janet have twin girls, Shannon and Karen. So that makes 4 children total. You got Dawn, you got Heather, and then you got the twins, Shannon and Karen. So things continue. Jack and Janet hear creaking noises as they go down the stairs. The creaking sounds don't stop. They're at their front door at this point. They open their front door, and they have 2 rocking chairs outside. So they open the door, see the chairs moving, but there's no breeze. It's as if somebody was sitting there, you know, enjoying the morning sunset, whatever the hell, but there's nobody there. Obviously, that'd freak anybody out, right? But they would brush it off. They would try to make jokes about it, be lighthearted. Because what else can you do?
Yeah.
You can't take it to heart immediately. Maybe that's why they stay so long.
Maybe.
But like the shit that happens, I don't get, which we'll get into that, but so they just kind of brush it off like, oh, we have ghosts in our house, like, oh, scary. But they really fucking did. That's the problem.
That more than a goddamn ghost.
They didn't want to believe it.
And that's pretty much it for like the beginning signs of it.
Yeah, like you get the smell. Jack would report being caressed on the shoulders.
That's not weird at all.
Not by Janet. Just, chilling by himself, being rubbed on. Right?
Kind of want to. Never mind.
But the weird thing about this is the things that Janet and Jack experienced, for the longest time, it was separate. One person would experience it while the other person didn't.
Mm-hmm.
If something happened to Janet in the middle of the night, Jack was sound asleep.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So this leads me to whenever there was a time where, so you got John and Mary next door, right? Jack and Janet's parents. They thought they heard Jack and Janet fighting next door.
Mm.
They heard screaming, they heard banging.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, they're experiencing all of this with Jack and Janet because they're telling them everything that's going on, and they think that maybe their son's going crazy, maybe the Navy messed him up. So, John, Jack's dad, goes next door to check on them, but they're just sitting there. The whole family's watching TV in the living room.
Fuck that.
I'm guessing they got a new TV because the other one apart, but they're in the living room, no fighting going on. He asks them what's going on. They said nothing. We're just having a family time. So it's not. Mary and John living next door were also experiencing things, right? So the things that Janet would experience would be blasts of cold air, and she would see human-like figures in the daytime when it's just her and the kids at the house. And she would say that the figure was shadowy, like with the frozen like aura to it, like it was just a mysterious black fog, if you will.
Fuck
so
that.
When she's noticed it, she can do anything with just freeze, right? So this apparition, this mystery, whatever, just walked straight through her.
Fuck.
And then kept going into the wall. Out of sight, right? So of course Janet freaked out. She wants to tell her mother-in-law, what just happened. So she runs next door. And she doesn't want to tell her, obviously, because she's gonna think she's crazy. I think anybody would.
Yeah.
But Mary tells her that she saw the same figure walk into Janet's side of the duplex.
Bro, so cool.
You're cold?
Oh, yeah.
It's 70 degrees.
Dude, I'm freezing.
Use the blanket.
Alright, I got a blanket.
Use the blanket, bro.
Dude, fuck this. Give me lunch.
So after Janet tells her mother-in-law about this mystery figure, if you will, the house is pretty quiet for a couple weeks. I mean, maybe the occasional bang.
I would assume so. Should.
In the walls, I'm talking.
Oh.
But nothing like too out of the ordinary, Until one day that Janet is helping one of her daughters get ready for her communion, because they're a church-going family. Obviously, that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
When a 4-foot light fixture from the kitchen just falls. So Shannon, one of the twins, is sitting on the table eating her Fruity Loops, and she gets hit by this light fixture.
Fuck, bro.
And it ends up cutting her. But there was no swaying of the light. There was no sign that it was going to fall. It just fell.
I feel like it's like one of those like old movies that you kind of see. I don't know if you ever like watched. I can't remember one like off the top of my head, but it's like, okay. Okay, that's why I'm saying this. So I've been watching Warrior on Netflix. Right, it's great. By the way, I know it's been out since like 2019, but I just started watching it just because I got Netflix back. But they're like fighting in this like old Western bar. And the fight concludes, and then the fucking ceiling fan, or like their light fixture, is like hanging and stuff like that, and it just falls. It's like that anticlimactic, like right after this fucking crazy shit happens, but like nothing happened beforehand. It just fucking falls.
That's kind of how this was, but the crazy thing is they were getting ready to go to church.
That's crazy.
And they're just sitting there, and then this light fixture falls and fucking almost kills little Shannon.
Poor little Shannon.
But the fact that they were getting ready for church is kind of crazy. So this is from 1984, but we're getting into 1985. So this is when stuff kind of escalates.
It gets a little more like physical and stuff like that.
If you can say that. So one night, after Jack and Janet finish making love, Janet claims that something pulled her out of her bed by her ankles while
they were doing the deed.
After getting done doing the deed. But it felt like she said that it felt like they were trying to rip her arms off.
Oh my god.
But there's nothing there. But like, do you think she was naked or?
I mean, I would assume so.
But this was right after sexy time. And she claims that she was pulled out of the bed by her ankles.
Was Jack there? Like, in the bed? Does he recount this, or no? I don't think he does.
I don't. That's what I'm saying. Everything happens to one person or the other.
And that's where I'm kind of like, as I was like reading more into this haunting and stuff like that, like, I mean, there definitely were times where like everybody would kind of like see and hear some shit, but like these little attacks, like, or not little, but like that.
Right.
For example, it's like, that's where my skepticism kind of comes in. It's like, okay, did it really happen, or like, are we just bullshit?
So after she was pulled, she claims that the rotten flesh smell, came back and the banging on the walls right at the same time.
Fuck.
So fast forward a little bit, they have a dog. The family has a dog named Simon. He's a German Shepherd.
Simon.
Poor Simon. So one day Simon's just laying in the kitchen with the family, and he's thrown into the door.
Damn.
He's just laying there minding his own business, and he's thrown into the door.
Yeah, they say that he was like literally picked up off the ground and then thrown so hard that it like that he yelped and he like limped for like a few days after.
But imagine the type of evil
Yeah, bro.
to
See
throw a
that's
German Shepherd.
bro.
Like I don't like Chihuahuas, but I wouldn't throw a Chihuahua.
I don't know. I've been big.
I might maybe kick it just like a little bit, but not kick it against the wall.
So like animal cruelty.
No, a little love tap.
A little. I'd probably spank it. Just
yeah. That's I wouldn't really do that. But they are annoying. Their bark is just too
too high pitched.
Too high pitched for me to deal with, and it's frequent.
And like for me, Chihuahuas, bro, like you are way too damn small to be yelling at me like that.
Exactly.
Like,
how are their lungs that big to hold that much air?
Bro, yeah,
bark that much.
I don't fucking know. They're fucking mean, bro.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Anyways,
so poor Simon, he's thrown. The girls would report these are the daughters would report shuddering in their room. So they described it as a bunch of birds, a flock of birds, just flying around in their room.
That's freaky.
That is kind of freaky, right? There was a report where Shannon was thrown down the stairs. So mind you, this is the little girl that got hit with the light fixture in the kitchen. Jack and Janet heard a bang on the stairs.
Oh my god.
Went outside to see, and Shannon's at the bottom of the stairs.
Damn.
Like, did she fall?
See that?
She's a kid. She could have. She could have fallen. But at this going along with everything else that's happened so far, it's kind of hard to believe that she fell.
It's hard to believe, but like at the same time, like my thing though is like, okay, so they all went to Catholic schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like,
and church every Sunday,
Catholic schools and stuff like that. So like, who knows what they were preaching about in the 70s and 80s? First of all,
that's true, but also them being churchgoers like so heavily
could have played into
the theory
mm-hmm.
that it was something of religious power.
So okay, so my dad, he went to no, I don't think it was my dad. I know someone around that same time that went to Catholic schools, like in that era, like the 70s and 80s, right? And like, I have nothing against Catholic schools. I'm actually Catholic. I just never went to Catholic schools. I always went to like public. My siblings did though, and like they're a lot weirder than I am. No, I'm just playing. I love y'all. But like, they would get into trouble a lot, and at the time back then, it was like kind of like a norm to like hit them on the hands with like rulers, like wooden rulers and shit, or like a wooden spoon. Like my dad going to public school would tell me about the times that he would get in trouble in like middle school and high school, and he'd literally get hit in the hand with like wooden like spoons or rulers. And so like, I can only imagine what happened in those like Catholic schools and stuff like that. So like, I feel like with the kids, at least, maybe they felt a little scared to like, maybe they were actually doing some of this stuff, not all of it, right? Because like, there's no way in hell that they would be able to do some like throw a fucking dog
or light a car on fire.
Like,
that's a good point that you make though. Like they're too scared to
like admit that they were maybe doing some of this stuff,
right?
Not all of it, right? But like maybe some of the stuff that was going on. Maybe they were just so scared to like admit it because they were so accustomed to like literally getting beat the fuck up. That's cool.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying that's what happened like at all, but it's just kind of like food for thought. Like maybe that was kind of happening a little bit. No, I know I'm scared of shit.
That's a fair argument. And we can get into that at the end whenever we can decide if this is fake or freaky. So after poor Shannon is thrown down the stairs, Janet would report mysterious smoke filling the room. But of course, during this time, Jack's asleep. Jack doesn't see this. And then if you think about it, going back to whenever John thought they were fighting, like say if your significant other was reporting seeing all this crazy stuff, and they've known each other for a long time,
right?
So obviously you want to believe your person,
right? Well, you hope so.
But if you're not seeing some of the stuff they're claiming, it's hard to. But on the other hand, Jack's experiencing stuff that Janet's not seeing.
That's it.
So in a way, that's kind of balancing each other out.
Yeah.
where they're believing they're the person. And then the fact that stuff is happening to John and Mary as well kind of makes all of this more believable. Because right after Janet would start seeing the mysterious smoke, Mary, which is the mother of Jack, she reported that her mattress was lifted off of the bed.
God damn.
Into the air and dropped with her on it.
That is wild. Yeah.
I can't. Get it? Like, she's old. She's an old lady, right? But maybe I don't see an old lady making that up.
I don't know.
Because I know they're not lifting it up off the bed. That shit's heavy.
I have a really good theory about like what happened, and like maybe I feel like some of this stuff was like maybe dramatized a little bit. Right. I have a really big theory about this. I have a theory about like literally everything that goes on and stuff like that. So like one thing that I kind of want to like, well, that's pretty much it for like that stuff, right? Or is there like a few?
Well, so after Mary's incident,
yeah,
we're going into whenever Ed and Lorraine enter the picture. So
I wanna touch on before that. Sorry, I want to kind of touch on like some of the stuff that like happened to Jack. Okay, so we mentioned Ed and Lorraine Warren, right? They consider themselves demonologists, right? Or Ed considered himself a demonologist, while Lorraine was like more of like an empath psychic, right? So in the demonic world of like the Catholic faith and just Christianity in general, more of like the Catholic faith than anything, something that I actually kind of learned on and stuff like that. It's also kind of what played into like some of my experiences, because, you know, when I was a little younger, I have a little story. Maybe I can dive into this a little bit for y'all, like in another episode, but I'll just kind of make it brief. I dove into kind of like demons and stuff like that for a little bit, just because I was really fascinated in the paranormal and just like demonic activity and religion. So there are two sets of demons that I kind of want to like go into right now. It's called the incubus and the succubus. Okay, the succubus is kind of what I'm going to dive into that happened with Jack, right? This is like one of the most controversial and terrifying like claims, just because controversial, because it's like, well, it never really happens when anybody is around, right? We've been talking about that a lot. It's like something happens to Jack, you know, Janet's not there to see it. I always want to say Jill.
Jack and Jill.
Jack and Jill.
I always might as well be Jack and Jill, honestly.
But Jack and Janet, right? So like one thing happened to Jack, Janet wouldn't see it. One thing happened to Janet, Jack wouldn't see it, right? One of the things was a succubus being reported, right? So Jack would report like while he was in bed, both awake and asleep, a shadow figure would kind of pin him down on the bed, and like he wouldn't be able to move. That can be kind of related to like sleep paralysis and stuff like that. There's psychological things, you know, like especially with somebody like serving in the military, PTSD is a really big thing. I one of my good friends, his name is Alex. Shout out Alex, love you. He suffers from like PTSD, right? Stuff like that. And like I've never really talked to him about that, but I can only imagine like what it is to be like that. But I have read a couple things that like having that like PTSD, that kind of mental disorder from like the military, can attribute to like a lot of sleep apnea, paralysis, and like stuff like that. So that's one, right? But he was also able to like see it, right? So he described the figure as like a decaying hag type of like person, right? So like it had hollow eyes with leathery skin. It had the body of like a really, really young girl with like leathery skin and stuff like that. Like it looked like to be quote unquote fit. I guess to like those days standards, like fit nowadays is not fit compared to what it was back then.
That's the crazy thing.
That's wild.
He described it as a younger woman body,
but an older hag-like face with decaying like face and like hollowed eyes, and it would just be pressing down on his chest so hard that he like really couldn't breathe, right? That can be attributed to like sleep paralysis. I've been there. I've never seen it, but I've been in that position where I've like been in sleep paralysis and I can't like move, but like I have to get out of it.
Keeping on that subject of sleep paralysis, there's one, I guess, multiple, like, this figure, or whatever you want to call it, has been reported throughout multiple sleep paralysis like reports, if you want to say.
100%.
The old hag.
Yeah.
Which is essentially an older woman on top of a person, and they can't move.
Right. And so, like, he said that he felt by it, as though it was trying to, and if we're not allowed to say this on podcasting networks, then we will bleep it out.
Bleep it out.
Basically, it was kind of his soul. I'm not going to say the actual word, just because it's like a sensitive topic, but definitely, I'm sure you guys can read between the lines. These attacks left him like really cold, sweating. He would have scratches and bruises on his groin, thighs, and chest, which is wild. This wasn't a one-time event either. Jack said it happened so many times, and that he would wake up and just feel drained. Like, it just felt like he would sometimes like have an overwhelming smell of like rot lingering in the room, and like that sulfuric type of like scent, which can be again attributed to demons. That goes back centuries, and the succubus is a female like spirit that or not spirit but demon, that basically does that. It violates you and stuff like that, and the incubus is the male version of it, right? Which we'll kind of like get into now with some of the attacks on Janet. So Janet claimed around this time to have been like grabbed by an invisible force on her breast and her crotch while she was like cooking or cleaning. Obviously it wasn't Jack, but no, it's fine. She felt like cold hands shove her hard enough that
Why are you laughing at this? Dude, this is not a laughing matter.
It's not a laughing matter. Stop. Like, sure. Stop laughing, bro. You're the one laughing.
Okay, sorry.
All right, so she would feel cold hands on her and stuff like that, and it would be like she would get shoved so hard that she would like hit counters or like furniture, right, like kitchen table, probably like the couch or something like that. In bed, she felt something like crawling under the sheets, pulling at her nightgown, right? It was also reported that Janet, during prayer, she can recount a couple times that she was like slapped across the face, and then red marks would appear on her face, and then it would fade after a couple minutes, right? So like,
shit was bad.
It was bad, and especially with those types of things happening, like, it's one thing to have like your TV fucking catch on fire, but it's another thing to like be violated, get slapped in the face during prayer, get violated the way that they did, and just having that uncomfortable feeling. I mean, you know, it's hard to say if it was like fake or freaky, right? But like those types of accounts, I personally like kind of believe every person. But again, it can also be attributed to like mental illness, right? We don't know a lot about Janet's story and like some of like the things that she went through in her life, but like those things right there, definitely like some of the things that like caught my eye about the case itself was like those attacks, that incubus and that succubus, or maybe it was, I don't know. I mean, later on down the road, Lorraine kind of like explains like what she sees and like the demonic spirits that she sees and stuff like that. But just knowing the knowledge nowadays and like some of the research that I've done, that's definitely what happened. Like, I can personally say that for sure. I think like my theory is that it was like an incubus and it was like a succubus attacking them. That male and that female demon going after and just being dirty, fucking dirty dogs.
Dirty dogs. But when things are to that point, when a succubus and incubus is involved, that's when you need to reach out. They probably should have done this before, which they tried. You know, the local priest, but obviously when you're in such a tight-knit community, you don't want to look like the crazy person.
Yeah.
So when you're going to your local church that you're attending, you know, probably on Wednesdays, I would assume. Wednesdays and Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to catechism, which is typically on like Wednesdays, and it has been for a while, and then you're going to church on Sundays. Catechism is mainly for like the kids, so they can get confirmed and stuff like that. If you don't know about the Catholic faith, typically it's just a class, and it kind of just explains the entire. Because I've been through it, right? Catechism is like it's for confirmation, right? If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I'm right, but like don't quote me on this, but kind of quote me. I think I know what I'm talking about.
Lightly quote.
Lightly quote, but like basically on Wednesdays, it's a class or confirmation, and like obviously the kids are of age. You know, at least the two older ones are of age to be going to those types of classes. I mean, you're going Wednesdays and Sundays. You're very oriented on the church.
Mm-hmm.
You're praying. Some of the things that happen like during, like for the family at least, like sometimes the family would be like praying together, or they would like even try to bless the house. And it was reported that the family would hear like loud bangings, that would like shake the house and like the walls and stuff like that. And then they reported it kind of was something like it was slamming its fists from the inside. Like someone was like literally like hitting the walls with their fists, with like an just supernatural type of like power, right? Superhuman strength type of deal. Windows would be like rattled violently, but the neighbors never heard or see it happening. Light fixtures would, be moving around, and like, of course, we went into that. Like they would crash, and then chairs would slide across the room on their own, slamming into walls like while they're praying and stuff like that. So like,
So when stuff like this is happening, you got to reach out. You know,
100%.
they tried with the local priests, but obviously they kind of didn't take it as serious because I mean, anytime somebody was at the house, they didn't witness anything, right? So they end up turning to Ed and Lorraine Warren, which I'm sure everybody knows, probably the most
Renowned demonologists, kind of like paranormal ghost hunters, I would say, for
right.
sure.
So at this time, like they've investigated the Annabelle doll before this, the Amityville house,
Mm-hmm.
the Conjuring house, the case of Arnie Johnson, which is the man that went to court for murder, but his what is it, plea?
Yeah, he pleaded not guilty due to possession,
demonic possession.
Yeah, it was like the first time in history that happened.
So they're not like they've had memorable cases under their belt coming into this call to go to West Pittston, right? So Ed claims that he saw a dark man-shaped mass in the home, which kind of checks out to what some of the psychics saw that were with Ed and Lorraine. Lorraine said that she felt a powerful demonic presence and claimed that the house contained a mix of entities, both human spirits and demons. So a psychic that was with Ed and Lorraine that worked with them noticed that there was three spirits in the home and one entity, if you will. One of the spirits that was seen was an older lady.
Mm-hmm.
Not too harmful.
She was kind of like benign,
confused,
sad, stuff like that.
Lost, maybe.
Probably lost. I mean, she might have died in the house at one point or something like that.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Like an older spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate thinking about that because it's like kind of sad. Like I would hate to like be in the afterlife not knowing, because a lot of the time, like what they say is like if there's a spirit in your home, a lot of times they don't know that they're dead. And they're really confused, and sometimes it can kind of turn into anger. Like that second spirit, the younger lady,
right?
She was an angry female spirit, so like I feel like maybe she was confused at first and realized like, okay, I'm fucking dead, and now she's angry because she can't cross over. Maybe the anger is just keeping her from crossing over. And then wasn't it reported like a dark, just kind of silent figure?
Yeah.
Right?
So like there was you have the older lady, you have the second spirit, which was of a younger woman, but was known to be violent. She was not a happy camper. No. We can say that. And then the third spirit was a man who had a mustache. Mm-hmm. And I have a mustache.
I have a mustache.
But Lorraine claims that he was capable of causing a lot of harm.
Yeah, he was dark. She said that he was like a dark spirit, but he was silent and he just watched but never acted.
He kind of had like a sinister like
vibe,
exactly. And then the fourth spirit, or the only entity that wasn't human-like, was known to be a demon. Lorraine claimed it to be a demon, and that would explain, the things happening to the children, the rotten flesh smell,
even the
succubus,
yeah,
Jack
Yeah.
can be tied just to this one demon.
Mm.
Because, like I said, I'm no expert, but I don't think, like, say if you're a local, like,
Priest
is, if they're not taking you serious, you need to reach out so that they got the help of an expert. But I don't see, say if your local Quick Trip is haunted, right? And it's just a normal spirit, they're not gonna do this crazy stuff that
No.
Jack and Jen experienced. So the fact that Lorraine saw a demon-like entity there,
they don't really have the capability to do that one. So like, well, I mean they do, but like, I don't know. It's kind of up in debate. Like some people think that normal spirits can do it, and that others feel like they can, and they, kind of like ride that train. Me personally, I have no idea.
well, the fact that Lorraine saw this demon, right? And that everything that was going on to the Smurl family, obviously it's scary.
Yeah.
That's feeding this entity energy. And especially when you're, preying on young children, a lot of kids get scared. They're scared of the dark or a loud noise. But the fact that they were experiencing this, I can only imagine that type of energy that entity was absorbing from that fear that was being created. It's just so crazy.
And so back to what I was kind of saying, like Ed and Lorraine Warren, they felt as though the demonic force was using the other three spirits as puppets or camouflage to kind of confuse the Smurl family and like kind of help torment them, basically. Because I mean, I don't know too much about like demons like that, but I assume that they can only do so much at once. So like, I don't know. That's just me though.
So I want to get into this male spirit, if you will. So Jack's taking a bath one day, and he sees two women in his bathroom. He said one looked to be 40 and the other looked to be 20. And they're wearing, old time dresses. They dress like they were from the past. Well, he sees these two women, and they're whispering and kind of snickering. But then they back up, disappear into the wall.
Yeah, that's fucking weird.
But they reappear with this male spirit with the mustache. And he tells Jack, "You'll pay for this." Which, that's creepy as hell.
Yeah. Fuck that. Bitch.
Like, it was fucking freaky.
Well, I'm out there.
But I want to get into the psychic that was with them, right? I need to find this really fast. Because this explains
everything
a lot. What the fuck with it? Okay, here we go. So the male spirit, after telling Jack he'll pay for this, obviously he brought that up, while talking with the Warrens and the psychic that was with them. But the psychic was able to provide some information that kind of filled in the gaps, right? So she said that the old lady was named Abigail. She was harmless. Because this is what the psychic saw also.
Oh, okay.
So Abigail is the old lady, harmless. Mustache boy, Mr. Macho, his name is Patrick. And he died in the home. And he also died, his wife, Patrick's wife, her name was Elizabeth. She also died in the home. But the violent woman spirit didn't resemble Elizabeth, which is Patrick's wife.
Right.
So this violent woman spirit, kind of a mystery still. But Patrick caught his wife Elizabeth with another man.
Oh.
And so Patrick strangled Elizabeth to death.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And the psychic told Jack, "You resemble the lover of Elizabeth."
Oh, fuck.
So him telling Jack that you're going to pay for this while he was in the bath,
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
he thought
that was his wife's lover.
Fuck.
Which is crazy.
Jack was cooked. That's just so. I wonder if that. So now that I'm thinking of it, right? Because demons are smart, right? Like that's just one thing about them. They know a little more than obviously humans do, right? And they kind of plan stuff out when they go and haunt. But like, I'm wondering if like maybe the demon saw the perfect opportunity to do this and use the other spirits as like his puppets.
It's exactly what it was. Because demons can control the spirits.
So yeah, they can control them, but demons also are very and so a lot of the times, like what people think about demons, like they know everything, right? They don't. Okay, that's first. They're just very good at predicting things, and so
also kind of giving off like a front.
Yeah,
like more manipulative.
You good?
And
you good?
Yeah.
You got it.
Manipulative.
You got it.
Right?
One more time.
Manipulative. Oh, fuck, I can't say that.
You're
I'll
good.
say that. I can't say that.
No, 100%. No, I agree with you on that. But like with demons, right? Like I feel like the reason why this demon chose to do it to the Smurl family was for a couple reasons, right? Obviously, they're a church-going family. It seemed like they took their faith very serious. I mean, they would go every Sunday. They probably went on Wednesdays. They were Catholic or Christian. I don't know if they were Catholic, but I think they were Christian, right? Just normal. But like a lot of the times, the reason why the demonic and demons choose to haunt and oppress certain people is because they're on a path that gets them closer to God and spreading the word of God and stuff like that. And demons don't obviously want that, right? Because they're still fighting their war. And that spiritual war. But like, I feel like it knew that Jack was gonna move there and that it was gonna be able to use that man's spirit to like. And hell, who knows? Like maybe Jack didn't resemble that guy, the lover, at all. But maybe that demon manipulated it
into seeing
him when Jack didn't look nothing like the fucking guy.
That's crazy.
So like it's just so much that you can like kind of like dig into and like kind of think about that stuff. But like for me, I don't know. It's just this whole haunting is just fucking wild.
But that's also a good point that you bring up. But whenever we talk about the skepticism behind this all, I want to get into something regarding that.
Okay.
So obviously at this time, you have the Warrens. The local priests weren't helping anymore because they looked at Ed and Lorraine as kooks or scam artists. Right. They didn't believe in what they stood for. They thought they were in it for the wrong reasons. They thought everything they were involved in was fake, a fraud. So none of the church didn't want to get involved with that. And then obviously at this time you have media around the house day in and day out because it's a big story. So the Smurl family couldn't leave their home without running into multiple people outside of their home on the street. Right. It was hard to go places. So the police actually had to close down the street to their home.
Damn.
I know. So let's see. So obviously with the media being involved, not only was the church skeptical, but so was everybody else, like in the town. They thought that the Smurls were putting on a front and playing everybody because there was talks of movie deals and book deals.
Yeah.
While this was going on, and people thought that they were just in it for the money.
And you also have to think. So I kind of want to touch on another case that we're gonna do an episode on this. I don't know when, but we definitely will. The Amityville haunting. So that haunting, just from the research that I've done, once Ed and Lorraine Warren kind of like quote unquote finished the case and solved the mystery and like got the demons out, quote unquote. Crap, I can't remember their names. But the two, the head of household, the guy and the girl, like the mom and the dad of the Amityville house, they went on television after the fact and just renounced the whole thing. They were like, no, like it was all fake.
Yeah, it's definitely nobody's really gonna know what happened besides Ed, Lorraine, and the Smurl family.
Yeah,
right. But the fact that it was covered basically worldwide, it's hard to believe that something didn't go on. But that kind of leads me into the skepticism of it. So, the Warrens claimed that they had audio and video evidence, and that it was given to an unnamed news station.
Mm.
They later took that back and said that they gave it to the church for evidence. Right?
Okay.
So, There's no video proof. There's no audio proof. There's nothing.
Yeah.
It's basically he said, she said. It's basically he said, she said.
Good dog?
Yeah. So it's their word versus the whole world.
Pretty much.
Because everybody's forming their own opinions. But another thing that might make this whole story fake is that Jack had brain surgery in 1983. And obviously, I'm no doctor. I'm no neurosurgeon.
And wasn't that when the attacks on him happened?
Yeah, it was around that time.
Around that time after.
And obviously, when your brain's getting, altered, if you will.
Yeah.
I can see some things not. I can see some hallucinations.
Right.
Some, I heard. Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Some like mass hysteria being spread.
Right.
So that's one thing to think about when you're forming your own conclusions on if you think this is fake or freaky. That Jack did have a brain surgery in 1983, which could have caused the hallucinations and mass hysteria. Also, the noises that they were hearing, because this is a coal mining town, right? So these noises that they could have heard could have been the earth settling, or the ground settling.
Yeah, could have been
in the town, causing shakes.
Yeah,
it's an old house.
Especially when you're doing that type of mining and stuff like that, and you're working on the railroad tracks and stuff. Yeah, I mean,
it's just something to think about
for sure.
And then the last point I want to get into is that the town did because it's a whole community, right? They would complain of a faulty sewer line that would create foul odors throughout the town.
See? So I wonder, okay, so that's pretty much the haunting in itself. I mean, we could go into more the Ed and Lorraine Warren side, but I mean, without much, it's just kind of the he said, she said, and stuff like that. I mean, Ed and Lorraine Warren, let me see here. They said that they admitted to it being one of the most stubborn hauntings. They believe that the demon had anchored itself onto the Smurls and not the house. Ed described it as fighting an invisible enemy that could change its tactics at will. And then they tried working with the church, right? After months of pressure, the diocese kind of permitted the formal exorcism and stuff like that. And the Warrens assisted for at least 4 hours. And then the activity kind of paused just for a little bit of time after. But damn, I forgot what I was going to say.
No, that's essentially it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more that we could go into it, but
the timelines are really sporadic, and the lack of evidence that's out there just makes it hard to believe. So I want to ask you, do you think this is fake or freaky?
Personally, I think it's fake. Just because. So, here's one of the things that I think about, especially with Ed and Lorraine Warren there. So, the coal mine and the faulty sewage line, one, creating that rotten flesh smell. I've been around some pretty nasty sewage, and I can only imagine, right? And I can't imagine because I've been around it before, and it smells gross. But I feel near towards the end of Ed and Lorraine's kind of case files, I feel it was more of people reaching out for media attention, right? And think about it. I'm sure once Jack got his surgery on his brain, how are they going to get income?
You're right.
Right?
Yep. Maybe he wasn't...
How is he going to work?
Maybe he wasn't as fit to do his job.
Or he might have not been able to do it at all, right?
That's a good point.
So like maybe I kind of believe like some of the little hauntings, like the but then again, all of those little hauntings can be attributed into, you know, other things, right? You know, the ground just settling, the earth settling because of all the mining, the railroad tracks that they're building, the trains constantly going through, stuff like that. The faulty sewage lines, right? But I feel like near towards the end of Ed and Lorraine Warren's investigations, and once they kind of got more into the media than itself, I low key feel like people were just trying to take advantage, and then Ed and Lorraine Warren would kind of like, not to discredit Ed and Lorraine Warren, I feel like a lot of their cases that they went through were very real cases, but I I've met mediums and psychic mediums in my life, and I've heard that a lot of the times if you hear so much of one thing being said, then when they're trying to get into that mode, I guess, or reading and stuff like that, and like kind of like seeing the things that other people can't, their mind, because the mind is the mind, it kind of feeds them what they want to see. So hearing about Jack's succubus, and already that alone can be attributed to a demon. I feel like once Ed and Lorraine especially heard that, when she got in her mode, it kind of like, it wasn't true.
Right.
Maybe the other little things happening, like, I don't know, the chandelier falling, yes, like, okay, that's crazy. The fucking TV in the fire, you know, the TV, the fucking car catching fire, the dog getting thrown across the room, like stuff like that, like maybe, but it's just it's so hard for me to believe this one compared to like the um the Perrin family, like that haunting.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with, and I feel like that shit's true because I've seen video evidence of it.
Yeah.
But like this one in particular, it's really hard for me to believe because I just, dude, there's just too many things to lead it to be not real.
Mhm.
But maybe that's just what the demon wanted in the first place, people not to believe it.
So before I say if I think this is fake or freaky, I forgot to mention that
Oh fuck.
Ed and Lorraine, you know, they're just like the Smurl family. They're church going.
Mm-hmm.
They're real big on their religion.
Well, yeah.
They take everything they do is based off of religious outlook or viewpoint. So I'm thinking that when the Smurls when they were contacted, and you know the Warrens helped the Smurls, that Ed and Lorraine didn't fill their heads with this mindset of it's demons. You know, it's that type of infestation, if you will.
Right.
So them being the same viewpoint on religion could have fed into the stuff that they were telling them and making it easier for the Smurls to believe.
Right.
Now, I think this is fake, but with kind of a caveat.
Okay.
One of the daughters, Karen Smurl, ended up becoming a paranormal investigator when she got older. Now, I think that could be because what she experienced was real.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's kind of a crazy job to seek out.
Yeah, that is fucking wild.
If it was all fake.
Right.
So maybe that stuff did happen, and she took it to heart and decided to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
And become a paranormal investigator.
Could be.
But I think that this is fake because the evidence, the lack of evidence from the Warrens.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
And then going back on their story saying it was with the church instead of the news station.
Right.
On top of, you know, the town being a mining town with the faulty sewer system.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm thinking.
With Jack's brain surgery.
Fuck yeah.
That just, to me, I'm with you, and I think this is a fake story. But we are getting a badass movie.
Yes.
From it, which is I love, because I love the Conjuring movies. Yeah. This movie is going to be the end of phase 1, if you will. So to the Marvel fans out there, you know, you have the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is the end of stage 1 for the Conjuring Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
And I love me some spooky movies. So
I like Conjuring movies.
So the fact that we're just getting a movie about this, because there was a movie, titled The Haunted,
but it was
in
trash.
'91. Yeah, trash. Okay. But they did get their movie deal.
They did.
And I believe a book deal as well.
Yeah, I think there was a book deal.
So the fact that also happened, on top of the lack of evidence from the Warrens, and the literal facts of Jack's brain surgery and, the faulty sewer line, I think makes the story fake.
But let us know. Let us know on YouTube in the comments down below. Let us know on TikTok, Instagram. We're going to put a poll up on TikTok and Instagram whether you all think that this is fake or freaky. Freaky. But I did want to just remind you guys, please, if you really liked it, subscribe, like, comment, stuff like that. Do the poll because we are kind of curious about what you all think. If you have a tale, if you have something that you want to get off your chest,
You have a tail.
A tale.
Like a furry tail?
No, dude, stop. Relax. A listener tale. If you have an experience, paranormal experience, something like that, once we get some in, we're gonna do an episode a week, just based off of listener experiences. Send them to our email, fakerfreaky@gmail.com. And when we get them in, we will basically read it off. So when you type it out, just make sure that it kind of follows like a story, and it, we'll throw in our own little points here and there, obviously, but we'll literally just be reading it. And also if y'all have any recommendations of what y'all want to hear us talk about and have our opinion on or something like that, definitely let us know in the comments, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, anything. We hopefully will be on Apple Podcasts. At the time of recording this, we don't know yet.
We gotta figure that shit out.
We gotta figure it out. At the time, like I said,
that's all we do. We figure it out.
We just go.
We go with the flow.
And we figure it out when we fucking get to the time that we need to figure it out. I don't know. But I mean, literally, we came up with this idea a week ago.
Yeah, a week ago.
And then not even a week ago.
It was less than a week ago. Now we already have this.
It was last Wednesday when
first episode recorded. It's kind of crazy.
Shit. Yeah, I mean, you bought the mic and you just fucking went from there.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank y'all so much for listening. If you've listened all the way through, subscribe. At 500 subscribers, we are doing that live podcast over the Hell's Gate, which is in our hometown and stuff like that. We'll be doing it in person. We're going to be drinking. We're going to be having a good time. Hopefully some laughs, and hopefully we won't see a demonic ritual in place, because that happens a lot over there.
Or a homeless person.
Or a homeless person trying to rob us for what money we don't have.
Facts.
Anyways, thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
The paranormal is real. It is real. The paranormal is real.